Okay. Okay, then again, thank you everyone for joining, and we start as usual with watching the breath mindfully for a few moments. Then you can try to generate good intention, motivation. By coming us here together to listen, to engage in discussions, and reflecting on the meaning that which we have studied, and contemplating on the meaning that we have reflected. Due to all of that, may it be cause and conditions to actualize our Buddha nature. So our Buddha nature can fully blossom. So that we can achieve fully enlightened state and be greatest benefit and help to each and every sentient being. Unconditionally, without being partial to each and every sentient being. In a more skillful way, according to the needs of each and every sentient being. And it may be cause and conditions to understand the Buddha nature, practice to be able to practice. And cultivate and fully develop the bodhicitta mind and wisdom realizing emptiness and all the bodhisattvas practice on the path. Okay. Can we share the prayer? Yeah, thank you. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient. Sangye Chodam Soge Sonam La Chanju Padu Dani Kaptos Dagi Shoshe Hive Sonam Dola Penche Sangye Doha Sangye Chodam Soge Sonam La Chanju Padu Dani Kaptos Dagi Shoshe Hive Sonam Dola Penche Sangye Doha. So we have been discussing on this particular text by Nagarjuna in the Praise of Dharmadhatu, and this is our 6th class of that. And it seems like we will not be able to complete. I had a discussion with Snare. Either I can finish today, which means we will kind of read through it, which is like around 40 verses. I think because we have just finished after verse 60, 61. And or we continue after break, after 3 months when I'm back again, and have a couple of extra classes, maybe 2-3 more classes. And so we had some discussion, and I think we kind of decided in terms of just rushing and trying to just finish now and just read through. We will continue so that we can have a little bit of more go a little bit slowly and have more discussions. So then maybe we will continue by end of today. Maybe we will know, maybe if we need maybe two more classes or maybe 3 more classes in July, once I'm back. So that is the discussion we have, and I think that is what it's going to. So we won't be finishing the whole text today. So we'll see how many verses that we can cover up today. So again, just to kind of I think we are on verse number 62. I think we finished verse number 61, and we are on the verse number 62 of that. Again, just to kind of refresh maybe, or remind, in terms of the Buddha natures, that we all sentient beings, the nature of our sentient beings' mind is luminous, clear, and awareness. And that nature of our mind And the nature of the Buddha's, that mind, there is no difference. That nature of our mind, that is luminous and clear and mere awareness. And the Buddha's mind, there is no differences. And because of that nature, we have that nature of mind, that is what allows us to become fully enlightened. And from the tantric point of view, the clear light mind of our mind and the clear light mind of the Buddha, there's no difference. The only difference in our clear light mind is kind of the only difference is our clear light mind is obscure, abstracted now, whereas Buddha's clear light mind is unobstructed, unobscure. So when those abstractions and obscurity is clear, then our mind become enlightened mind, and the person become the fully enlightened Buddha. So that is from the point of view of the conventional nature of the mind. And not only that, that mind, from the nature of that, ultimate nature of that mind also is also empty of truly or inherent existence. And because it is empty of truly existing inherent existence, therefore that mind can be transformed. If something is truly existing, inherently existing, then it becomes static, cannot be changed. It will remain as it is all the time. And therefore, if our mind is unenlightened now, it cannot become enlightened. But because the ultimate nature of mind is unstatic, because it's not inherently, therefore it's dependent on many causes and conditions, dependent arisings. And because it's dependent arising, when we change those causes and conditions, then the unenlightened mind can become enlightened, transformed into enlightened. And therefore, enlightenment becomes possible. Therefore, we can achieve Buddha. And therefore, that is how we have the potential to become Buddha, the Buddha nature. So I think that was the main kind of the topic of this text. And Nagarjuna explained so many different examples as we have gone through. And as in terms of the verse number 62, again, he give with another examples, where he says, just as from a mix of milk and water that is present in a vessel, geese just sip the milk, but not the water, which remains just as same as it is. For what it is saying, water, if you mix water and the milk together, the geese will kind of drink or sip the milk, but leaving everything water inside, and kind of separate those two things. I don't know whether is this example you see quite often in some of the Indian writings. I think also Adisha's writing also, there is something about that, you know. They give, there is a statement saying, life is very short, but there is so much to do. Life is short, there is so much to do, but we don't know how much life we have. Therefore, you should try to take the essence from the life. Just like the geese take the milk from the water. The essence, the milk. When the water and the milk mix, the geese just kind of sip or drink the milk, taking the essence and leaving behind the water, not drinking the water, but just the milk. So you see that example in Adisha's writing, as well as here you see that also here, Nagarjuna. So I'm not sure, if you actually mix the water and milk, and if you give to the geese, whether they can, all the geese can do that. I'm not sure that example, how it came, I don't know, maybe we might have to experiment and see whether all the geese can do that. I'm not so sure. You see that example, and whether it's something to do all the geese, or maybe there is some kind of legend, some kind of legend or story where the geese, there's certain particular geese who does that, and bringing that kind of story or that example from certain stories that I'm not aware of. There could be certain kind of story, legend of that. But anyway, whatever that is the example, okay? So for us ordinary beings, the water, when you mix with the milk, you cannot differentiate. It seems like they are same. It seems like they are one. But there is, whether it's all the geese or there's special geese that is able to kind of differentiate it and leave the water behind and take the milk, And so that is the example. Then the meaning here says, just so being covered by the afflictions, wisdom dwell within this body, one with them. But the yogin just accept the wisdom and leave the ignorance behind. So that in the same way, when you have wisdom, realizing the ultimate truth, whether you have the wisdom realizing the ultimate truth conceptually, or whether you have realization of emptiness that perceives the emptiness directly, and even within the wisdom realizing the emptiness with the conceptually, even there are many different levels. And also within the wisdom realizing emptiness directly, there are also many different levels. They are not just all same level. So there are many different wisdom of that wisdom. But still, that wisdom are being, kind of obscure and obstructed by the afflictive emotions and the imprint of the afflictive emotions, So while the practitioner, take the essence, the wisdom, and cultivate that wisdom, and cultivate and increase and improve that wisdom. At the same time, they leave everything other behind, such as the all the afflictive emotions, the ignorance, and all the imprint led by those ignorance behind, like the water. So the practitioner is like the geese, and the wisdom is like the milk, and then the delusions and the afflictive emotions and the imprint are like the water. And so the practitioner is able to take the essence, the wisdom, practice that while abandoning, while eliminating, while leaving behind all those afflictive emotions. It is also a little bit similar to one of the verses that we went before, where Nagarjuna give example, like when you have kind of, robe or armor that's made out of the like a stone and is stained, and so in order to burn the stain, you put in the fire. The stain is being burned by the fire, but it doesn't burn the robe that is made of the stone. In the same way, through the realization of emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness, it destroys all those afflictive emotions, all these negativities, but it does not destroy the mind itself. So is similar like that verses, Here is more to do with the wisdom, but it's similar. So if the practitioner, take the essence, the wisdom, practice the wisdom and cultivate the wisdom, whereas abandon and eliminate the delusion, the obscurations, the imprint. So then how does one does that? What is the path? What is the method to do that? What is the practice? What is the method to do that? And so so to portion that, the next verses come back. As long as we still cling to the self and mind, we will conceive of outer things through this. So that is how that one explains how we get caught up in the samsara and suffering. First, there's a sense of appearance of inherently existing self. The self existing by itself from its own side, And not only there's appearance, then there's clinging or grasping of that self. So there's a clinging and grasping of, self existing by itself from its own side, or truly existing self. On the basis of that, then there is not only grasping or clinging of the self, then there is grasping and clinging of mind. First there's self, and then from that self, it comes mind. Then grasping to mind. Through the grasping of the mind, then there's a grasping and clinging to my body, my mind, my experience, my friends, my things, my belongings, so like to other external objects, then we started clinging and grasping. Due to those kind of clinging and grasping, then attachment arises. And from that attachment, then, due to that strong attachment, then we experience a lot of suffering and pain, as well as we create negative karma, create more karma to experience more suffering in the future. And due to that kind of attachments, then we take we take rebirth in the samsara, and then having taken a rebirth in samsara, then we continue to experience suffering. It is similar to, as Nagarjuna explained in his another writing, the root of the wisdom of the fundamental treatise, Geshe Sherab, where he explained about how the evolution of the samsara, how we circle into the samsara and experience suffering through the 12 link. So it's here similar. From the ignorance, due to the ignorance, then there is we create the actions. Due to creating the actions, karma, then the karmic imprint is left within the mind consciousness. Then at the time of the death, then we activate that karmic seed through craving and grasping, the link of craving and grasping. And due to having activated that karmic seed within the consciousness through the craving and grasping, then it becomes the existence or becoming. That's the 10th link. And then after the death, then we experience the 6th result. So through that is how we complete the 12 link. And through the 12 link, we experience, take rebirth, samsara, and experience suffering. So that is how, first, this explains why we suffer, why we are in samsara, and why we suffer. And then next two lines, where is but once we see the double lack of self, the seed of existence find their end. But once we hear, once we understand or have a realizations of true selflessness, the selflessness of the person and the selflessness of the phenomenon. When we have a understanding of emptiness or the selflessness of the person and the selflessness of the phenomenon, that is what it means here, the lack of, where it says, once you see the double lack of self, double is two, so it's the selflessness, the devoid of self of the person and the devoid of self of the phenomena. In other words, selflessness of the person and selflessness of the phenomena. When you have that realizations, then you end. Then you end the samsara and the sufferings. Then one is free from the samsara and free from the suffering permanently. So the antidote, the path to abandon and to eliminate all the afflictive emotions and the ignorance is the wisdom realizing the true selflessness, or the wisdom realizing the true emptiness, the emptiness of the person and the phenomena. So also this statement also explain one unique or prasangika point of view. A different view from some other the other school of thoughts, Buddhist other school of thought. In order to free from the samsara, you need to have a realization of the emptiness of phenomena. Must. So again, these verses explain that. Because some other schools, you don't need to have the realization of emptiness of the phenomena in order to free from the samsara. Just by having the understanding of gross emptiness of the self, one can overcome, one can free from the samsara. But here, you need to have the subtle understanding of the emptiness, and the understanding of the emptiness or selfness of the phenomena. So once you have overcome the root or the seed of the afflictive emotions, that is the fundamental ignorance, by cultivating the wisdom realizing the emptiness, then you achieve the nirvana. Then you achieve the nirvana. So if one can achieve the nirvana, then is all the nirvana same. So then there are different levels of nirvana. Okay. Non-abiding nirvana, and then abiding nirvana. So non-abiding nirvana is when you achieve fully enlightenment, and it's called not. So next verse is trying to explain the difference between the different nirvanas. So here's, since is the ground for buddhahood, nirvana, purity, permanent, and virtues too, then that one explain non-abiding nirvana. Non-abiding nirvana means when you achieve fully enlightenment, that nirvana is non-abiding in two extremes. One extreme is not abiding in samsara, and the other non-abiding extreme is abiding in individual liberations. So when you achieve fully enlightenment, neither you are in samsara, neither you are in individual liberations. And so that is what is called non-abiding nirvana, the Buddhahood. Okay? And that nirvana, that non-abiding nirvana is purity. Okay? Because that nirvana, not only abandon the delusions, but also the imprint left by the delusion, the subtle obscurations. So therefore is purity. It's not only pure free from the delusion, but it is also pure because it's free from the imprint left by the delusions, what we call subtle obscurations. The arhat, they still have that imprint. They don't have delusion, but they have still the imprint. They still have that subtle obscurations that's left by that delusions. And that's why they are not omniscient. That is, they are not fully enlightened. So but when you achieve fully enlightened, the Buddhahood, then you are not only free from both obscurations. So that is why it's purity, Impermanence, according to some of the commentaries, is permanence, because it has perfected the understanding of the equality of the samsara and nirvana, So understanding, on ultimate level, there's no samsara, there's no nirvana. On ultimate level, samsara and nirvana are equal. And therefore, the Buddhas have not only understood the on ultimate level, the equality of the samsara and nirvana, but they have perfected that understanding, that realizations. And therefore, again, here it's called permanent, according to some of the commentaries, And then it is a virtues, because that nirvana is the highest level of the virtues. That nirvana is highest level of the virtues. There's no more higher virtues than that non-abiding nirvana. So therefore, that's where it's the purity, permanent, and virtues too. It has all these qualities. The non-abiding nirvana has all these qualities. On the other hand, and because of childish thing of two, on the other hand, the nirvana of the arhat of hearer and solitary realizers, that nirvana is not same level of purity, is not same level of permanent, is not same level of the virtues. And therefore, those two nirvana is like a nirvana of childish compared to the Buddha's nirvana. Okay? If you compare the non-abiding nirvana of the Buddhas and the nirvana of the arhat, there are two kinds of arhat, the arhat of hearer and arhat of solitary realizers. Those compared to Buddha, they are like a child, small, still not fully grown up, not fully enlightened. So compared to their nirvana is like childish nirvana, because it doesn't have all these other three qualities. And the difference between the hearer and solitary realizer is, at the end of when they come to the end of their path, before they achieve in their nirvana, then the hearer, they achieve nirvana by listening and hearing the instruction from the teachers. They listen, they hear the instructions, and by following the instruction and practicing, then they achieve nirvana at the last stages. Whereas solely realizer, even though at the very beginning they rely on teachers, instructions, all of that, but at the very last moment before they achieve their arhat or nirvana, then they don't rely on that, but they rely on their own wisdom, of such as the wisdom of realizing the 12 link, and through that then they achieve arhat, or nirvana. So in a way, at the end, they don't live with others; they live by themselves, meditating. Solitude is like solitude, So anyway, those two are the what it means by chalice, thing of two. That is why, and how they achieve the nirvana, how two of those practitioners achieve the nirvana and arhat, and that one is in the yoga of their non-duality, this rest. And they achieve their nirvana by engaging the yoga of the practice, of understanding, by cultivating the wisdom that remain in the non-duality, having the direct realization of emptiness, by remaining in that meditative equipoise of non-duality and resting in that state of the mind. The wisdom relies on the emptiness directly, and meditating in that equipoise without any dualistic, within that non-dualistic, and totally meditating and resting that through that, then they achieve and supported by the merit, then they achieve the nirvana. So that. So next one explain then, if our mind is unenlightened now, because we have Buddha nature, therefore if we can become enlightened by slowly, because we have Buddha nature, even though we are unenlightened now, but since we have Buddha nature, therefore, slowly, by, peeling up the skin of those obscurations, those afflictive emotions, taking one by one, and then slowly, we become more and more pure, we become more and more enlightened, and finally become fully enlightened, and achieving that fully enlightened state, if we can, so therefore we can become fully enlightened Buddha, then what are the cause? What are the cause conditions that give cause and conditions to become more and more pure, to become more and more enlightened? And what are the cause and conditions to transform our Buddha nature into the Buddha? Buddha nature is the potential now, and what are the cause conditions that can transform that potential into the result, And so then here the author Nagarjuna explaining what are the cause that help to transform the potential into the full result. So generosity, multiple hardship. So what it means is, one of the practice, one of the cause that help to transform our mind, our potential, the Buddha nature, to become, Buddha and fully enlightened. In one of those virtues, one of those practices is generosity. So multitude hardship means, there are many different levels of generosity. Some of them more easy, some of them more difficult. Practicing generosity of wealth is easier. The practicing the generosity of your body is more difficult. The practice of generosity of your own life is difficult. It requires, that's what you call multiple hardship, and not only to be practice the generosity of giving as we progress on the path, even giving your own body if you need it, giving your own life if it is needed, So that is the Bodhisattva's highly developed Bodhisattva's practice. It's not for us at the moment, not even for the very beginner Bodhisattvas. For the beginner, is not encouraged to give your body and your life, But when you reach through practice, when you reach certain point, then you are encouraged to do, and Bodhisattva will be able to do without any kind of hesitations, without any fear, joyfully to do that. Because at that time when you have actualized, very special wisdom and the method, then you can do that, So when you have direct realization and emptiness, and when you are very high level of bodhicitta, then at that time, then even you give your body, your life, we don't have same pain like we would have if I give my body now, If someone cut my body, I will have pain. But when you reach that, when you have that realization, you will not have same pain like we had because of that bodhicitta mind and wisdom. What do you think? Do you think that we can reach a point where if someone cuts your hand, still not feeling the pain and suffering? It seems like not possible, isn't it? It seems like, how can that be possible? Someone not feeling the pain when their hand is being cut because they want to give their hand. But it is, we hear many stories of Buddha's giving his body and life when he was bodhisattvas on the path, and you hear of many other bodhisattvas stories, and they don't have any fear, hesitations, It doesn't seem like they're in pain from, and when I first hear, it seems like, and so like in Shantideva, I think, if I remember, and guys both were alive, I think that, or is it somewhere else? Now I'm maybe not, I'm not. Basically, it says, I think it's in that, yeah. When you reach a certain point, it's like chopping a vegetable. Even when you cut yourself, it's like chopping a vegetable, meaning almost no feeling of pain. Basically. So they say when you reach that, then it is okay to give the generosity of your body. Before that, you are not encouraged to do that. When I first saw that statement, it was kind of, I couldn't grasp fully what it means, how is possible, because we don't have that experience. Because for us, even small cut, so much pain, and But I started to think about it. I started to over the years, and then something came in my mind, that you hear and you see when people are in a war, or when people are very strongly emotional, very angry, and in that, and when they try to fight and they hurt each other. Sometimes even someone hit with a knife something, they are cut. Still, they are not aware they have been cut for for a certain moment. They are not even aware they have been cut because they don't feel the pain at the very beginning. And then they see the blood coming, and then that is when they started to then understand they have been cut. But because in that one moment, their emotions, whatever anger, whatever, so strong, they couldn't feel the pain. So when your mind is in certain strong emotion point, you don't even feel the pain or physical at that moment. If that is possible in such way, it can be possible the other way around. When you have such a strong bodhisattva mind, and not only you have such a strong bodhisattva mind, but also you have wisdom realizing emptiness directly. So you have no grasping, clinging to your body. You have no grasping, clinging to your body at all anymore. So there is no more clinging and grasping, and you have so much bodhisattva for others. Then it's possible. Then you can, even when it's been cut like that, you not feel the pain. So after that was, I thought, oh, it is possible, even though we don't have direct experience, but logically, if you think, reasoning, it seems it is possible. Anyway, I'm describing because here it talk about generous multiply hardship. That is where the hardship is. So that is the one, and then ethic, gathering the being's good, and so then the practice of moral discipline, the virtues, or the practice of moral discipline, and within the bodhisattva practice of moral discipline, then it includes all the way to benefit other sentient beings, because again, within the bodhisattvas, the practice of moral discipline, the moral discipline of refraining on misdeed, the moral discipline of engaging in virtues, the moral discipline of benefiting other sentient beings, So that is where ethic or moral discipline, gathering beings good, working or benefiting others' well-beings, others' well-being or others' good or others' happiness, and that practice of that morality, and the patient benefiting beings, and the practice of the patience, the practice of the patience, and the practice of patience is, even when someone is not nice to you, not only you don't try to be not nice to them, but you try to be helpful and beneficial to them. Just like in many of the prayer they make, even everyone's become my enemy, even everyone try to, harm me, kill me, may I never get angry. Instead, may I be able to benefit and help them in response to their harm. Such is the bodhisattva practice of the patience. So the bodhisattva practice of patience is to help and benefit, even when whether people are nice or not nice, whether people are kind or not kind, whether people help or whether they harm, and that bodhisattva practice of patience always helping benefit, so that the practice through these three, the dhatu blooms. So that is, through this practice of, the three practice of the method, those three practice of the, the method, then the Buddha nature, the dhatu here means the Buddha nature, the potential, the Buddha nature or the potential to become Buddha, that dhatu it grows and blossoms and become more and more pure, more and more free from the obscuration and abstractions. So those are the cause. Then others, enthusiastic, vigor for all dharmas. Another cause and conditions, for our Buddha nature to fully blossom is the joyous effort in the virtues. And that is being having a joyfulness, effort in studying all the dharma, practicing and engaging in all the dharmas, whether it's a scriptural dharma, whether it's the realization dharma, having the joyful effort in all those different practices of the dharma. And then the mind that enters the meditative poise, and that is the karma abiding or meditative concentrations, the karma abiding and meditative concentrations. And through the meditative concentrations, then we have control over our mind. Having a control over mind, then we can direct our mind wherever we want, so toward virtues. At the moment, we have no control of our mind. We want to direct our mind toward virtues, and our mind run away towards non-virtues. We want to be our mind in the positive state of mind. The mind goes into the negative state of mind because we have no control at the moment. So through the meditative concentration, karma abiding, we try to gain control over mind. So then wherever we direct, the mind follow that. And so then when you are able to do that, then we can, we will be able to accomplish our practice and have the realization more quickly. The prasna as your permanent resort. I think I think the permanent, the word permanent, I don't think is I don't think this is the best translation here. The prasna here means wisdom realizing the emptiness. Okay, the prasna, wisdom realizing the emptiness. As your permanent resort, meaning you apply all the time. So you apply that perseverance and meditative concentrations and the wisdom all the time. You apply that all the time to all the practice, in everything that we practice, And so the wisdom that realizes the emptiness, which is the very main antidote towards all those afflictive emotions. These two, so those three, enthusiasm and meditative concentration and wisdom, these to enlightenment unfold. No, these are the cause that to make enlightenment unfold, to actualize enlightenment within each of us. Therefore, they are the cause of enlightenment. They are the cause that give support the Buddha nature to it to fully grow. So with that, it explained the six perfections, six paramita. So six perfections, six paramita as the being cause to enlightenment that support the Buddha nature. And next one, it explained the four other paramitas. Normally, the four other paramitas. Sometimes you see 10 parameters. Normally we hear about 6 parameters. That's more common. But then there's 10 parameters. 10 parameters in relation to 10 bhumis, Each of those bhumi has main practice of each of those parameters. So top is the method, So the other the 6 is top of method, the power of the model, and the prayer and the exalted wisdom, So those four are the other 4 parameters. Then it becomes 10 parameters. So all these other 4 parameters are also the cause for our Buddha nature to fully develop. So that is where prasna, that is joined by the means, So means here is the method, mean or method, So the method, which is the renunciations and the bodhicitta mind, renunciations and the bodhicitta mind, that is supported by the wisdom, So that is the means. That is also the cause of enlightenment, And then aspiration, prayers, very pure. So then that is the paramita of the prayer, So there are a lot of aspiration prayer made by the incredible prayer by the bodhisattvas, unimaginable prayer by the bodhisattvas, Sammanvada's prayer, you can see. Siddhigava's prayers, you can see. All great bodhisattvas, incredible prayer they made, unimaginable. So those are the perfection of the prayers, So such inspiration prayers, and firm stay in power. So that is the paramita of the power. And the power that can overcome, the obstacles, the power to overcome the interference, to actualize the fully enlightened states and the nirvana, And the wisdom too. So then that is the paramita or the exalted wisdom, So that is the paramita of exalted wisdom. And then that wisdom is again the exalted wisdom that realizes emptiness directly, Those wisdom too. These 4 dharma makes dhatu flourish. And again, those 2 paramita, those 2 dharma practice of dharma or the paramitas also are the cause that make the Buddha nature or the dhatu to flourish and fully grow. So in the nature of the Dharmadhatu itself, or in the nature of the ultimate nature of your mind itself, there's no unenlightened becoming enlightened, there's no enlightened and unenlightened state, the nature of the ultimate nature of your mind. But the relative level of your mind can become unenlightened to more enlightened, and so that is where, So next one is, you find that in Nagarjuna's writing, you find it in Shantideva's writing and many others, is refuting some of the misunderstanding of Mahayana, because where there was misunderstanding and thought the Mahayana teachings were not given by the Buddha. Mahayana teachings were not, the Mahayana teachings were not actually given by Buddha himself. There is some kind of misunderstanding and criticism, and so then Nagarjuna and other great masters, they defend how that is misunderstanding, and that such a criticism is a very negative karma. Such criticism is negative karma. Such mistalk, misunderstanding, wrong views, So that is where this next verse is more to do with that. To Bodhicitta, I pay no homage, saying such is evil speech. So, due to misunderstanding, those who said, the Mahayana teachings are not taught by the Buddha, Therefore, indirectly, even though they might not directly kind of criticize the Bodhicitta itself, even though they don't criticize Bodhisattva directly, but indirectly, it becomes a criticism of the Bodhicitta itself and Bodhisattvas, because the Bodhisattvas cultivate and develop Bodhicitta by relying on the Mahayana teachings. Where does the Bodhisattva develop Bodhicitta mind? From where do they develop? They're through practice. Through practice, where does the practice come from? Where they rely on? Those practices come through Mahayana teachings. You don't find in the non-Mahayana teachings not so much about Bodhisattvas, how to cultivate Bodhisattvas, So all the teachings on Bodhicitta, 6 perfections, 10 perfections, they all come through the Mahayana teachings. And so if you criticize that and say it's not taught by the Buddha, then indirectly you're criticizing the Bodhisattvas who rely on those teachings to cultivate the Bodhicitta mind, And so therefore, having such view is wrong. And saying that is a criticism and it's a very negative karma, So if we don't understand, it's better to just leave it more like equanimity, And there are a lot of things in our teachings, many things, sometimes we cannot fully grasp them, meaning of them, Maybe there come a time, maybe we might be able to understand them. Maybe there come a time, maybe we might or might not at this point. but still is more safe and better for not to criticize, and so that is. If there is no Mahayana teachings, then there is no bodhicitta, because there is no practice of bodhicitta, and therefore you cannot develop bodhicitta. If you cannot develop bodhicitta, there is no bodhisattvas. If there is no bodhisattvas, then there is no Buddha. So that is where here Nagarjuna is saying, where there are no bodhisattvas, there will be no dharmakaya. And it's similarly Chandrakiri in his Madhyamika Pramana, no Pramana, Umana Juba, commentary to the middle way, he's Nedo Sanget, Sanget Chadu Sambale, where he is very similar here, and here what Nagarjuna explained and the verse that he explained in that. Maybe first we'll go through that. And so then to say there is Buddha, and then to say there is no Bodhisattva is a contradiction. Because if there is no Bodhisattva, there can't be Buddha. Buddha only comes through the Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas become Buddha. Without Bodhisattva, someone cannot become a Buddha. Without first becoming a Bodhisattva, we cannot become a Buddha. Without Bodhicitta, there is no Bodhisattva. And without the practice of Bodhicitta, you cannot develop Bodhicitta. And to practice the Bodhicitta, you need to rely on the teaching that teach how to develop Bodhicitta. And those are the Mahayana teachings. And so therefore, indirectly saying those teachings by the Mahayana are not taught by the Buddha, criticizing them, and then believing there is a Buddha is like a contradiction. Yes. Yeah, I don't know whether there are many others points. Okay, I thought it was here, maybe it is not. And without Buddha, there is no Arhat. The Arhat arises because the Buddha gives the teachings, and then they practice the teachings, actualize the Dharma within themselves, and then they achieve Arhat. And so without the Bodhisattvas, there is no Buddha, there is no Arhat. So they all depend on Bodhisattvas, and all the Bodhisattvas depend on the Bodhicitta. And so that is also, as I was in Chandrakiri, also is Nyedo Sangyedinam. The Arhat of the hearer and the Arhat of solitary realizers arise from the Buddha. And the Buddha arise from the Bodhisattvas. And the Bodhisattvas arise from the great compassion, Bodhicitta, and wisdom realizing emptiness. So again, Chandrakiri explained, and this is similar. So then in terms of, so I think then, I think it comes later. I didn't see that. So then with the example, it's, some dislike the seeds of sugar cane, but still wish to release sugar. Without the seed of sugar cane, there will be no sugar. If you cherish the sugar because you want to use it for your food, your drinks, then you cannot ignore the cause of the sugar cane. If you don't take care of the sugar cane, then there is no cause to produce the sugar, and you cannot have that because it's a cause and conditions. So if you want the sugar, you have to cherish the sugar cane or whatever other raw material that it makes the sugar, the result. So on the other hand, when those seeds of sugar cane are well guarded, fostered and refined, molasses, sugar, and candy too will then come forth from them. But if the farmers, they take care of the sugar, they plant the sugar cane, and then they water it, and they took care of well, and then when it grows, and from the sugar cane, then you can make all these, candies and sugar and molasses and that from them, and then you can experience a similar in that. With bodhicitta, it is just the same. When it's guarded, when you guard the bodhicitta, when you try to meditate, practice, and when you keep the bodhicitta mind and foster it, not allowing bodhicitta mind to diminish, but instead continue to foster it by cultivating, meditating, and engaging the other virtues that support the bodhicitta mind, others practice of perfections and so forth, and refine it, and also supported by the wisdom, you refine it. Then through that bodhicitta, arhat, conditioned realizer, Buddha too will then arise and spring from it. Then from that bodhicitta, arhat, that's a higher arhat. Conditional realizer is the arhat of the solitary realizers. And the Buddhas too, and even the Buddhas, they come to that. And so again, the Buddha comes directly from the bodhicitta and bodhisattvas, and the arhat, the two kinds of the arhat, they arise indirectly because they come through the Buddha, and Buddha come through the bodhisattvas and bodhicitta. And more examples, he gave. Just as farmers guarding the seeds of rice and others, thus the leaders guard all these who are inspiring to the supreme jhanas. So just as the farmers, if they want to have a good harvest, the farmers, if they want to have a good result, good harvest, then they have to guard. They have to take care of the seed and everything else. They have to take care. They have to guard it well. If they don't take care and if they don't guard it, then they will not have a good harvest at the end of the year. In the same way, those who are aspiring for the Buddhahood, and those who are aspiring for the mind and the path, then we have to take care and protect and guard all the practice and the cause that has been explained, such as the practice of 6 or 10 perfections, the cause of the Dharmadhatu, the cause of the Buddha nature to fully blossom, So we have to guard all of those virtues, all of these cause. If you don't guard all this, and including the bodhicitta mind, main cause is the bodhicitta mind. The bodhicitta mind, the compassion, the wisdom of life and emptiness. So we all have to practice, we all need to develop, we all need to guard and maintain them in order to what time would you do it start? At 4? Oh, it's already an hour and a half?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I guess maybe I have to stop here because I know you might have questions. So any questions? Anyone has any questions, comment before we do a dedication? Yes, Neha.
I wanted to ask you about the comment you were saying earlier that, only Prasangika requires selflessness of phenomena for liberation. All the other schools say it's sufficient to have the realization of selflessness of person.
Uh-huh.
Can you explain what argument Prasangika makes to the other schools?
First of all, from the 4 Buddhist tenets, the first 2 tenets, Babasika and for the school of great exposition and the school of the Sutra, they don't even have a concept of selfness of phenomena. They only have selfness of persons, They don't have that, even the concept, they don't even present the selfness of phenomena. Then when it comes to the Mahayana Buddhist tenets, the minor school and then middle way school, and of course in the middle way school there's 2, Prasangika and Sotandika. They all present the selflessness in 2, the selflessness of person and selflessness of phenomena. But the way they present is a different, and the way the Prasangika present. The way they present the selflessness of the persons, according to the Prasangika, it is a gross level of selflessness of person. It's not a more subtle level. That is why they cannot. By cultivating that selflessness of the persons, you can overcome certain level of delusions, more gross level of delusion, but you cannot overcome the most subtle level of the delusions, and therefore one need to have the realization of more subtle level of selflessness of the persons. And in order to have a complete understanding or realization of selflessness of person, you need to have the selflessness of the phenomena. I think in Nagarjuna's, precious garland, there is a one verses where it says, as long as you are grasping to your aggregates, then there is still grasping. And as long as you're grasping, then you wouldn't have able to go of the then you will not be able to come the more subtle grasping. And if you cannot overcome the more subtle grasping, then you cannot free from the samsara. So again, because when they present the other schools, the selfness of persons, they do not present the selfness of persons as the empty of inherently existing self, because they still have a concept of inherently existing self. They believe there is inherently existing self, you know. If there is no inherently existing self, they cannot present the self to exist, the person to exist. And so therefore they cannot present when they present the selfness of the person, they don't present it as an empty of inherent existence. From Prasangika point of view, therefore, that understanding cannot overcome the inherent existence of the persons. In order to overcome the ignorance of inherent existence, grasping of inherent existence self, you need to have a realization of non-inherent existence of the self, the persons. And in their presentation, they don't present that. They cannot present that. So that is the way it is. The issues comes. So Prasangika will not say their presentation of the selflessness of the person is meaningless or not beneficial. They will say it is beneficial. By cultivating that, you can overcome many delusions, gross level of delusion, but you cannot overcome the more subtle level of the delusions. So that is the point there.
Okay, Shana.
Yes, Amy.
Just in following that, all right, so then if somebody from that explanation, would you say that somebody from Svatantrika could not reach the path of seeing, or would not, at what point would they not reach? Would they still be in the path of preparation, or?
They could be in the path of accumulation. They cannot go beyond the path of accumulations. As long as they hold that view. You know,
so even Svatantrika could not.
From Prasangika point of view, yes.
Okay, thank you.
They can only go up to first path and not further than the first path, you know, unless if they still have a belief that there is an inherently existing self, inherently existing aggregates, then they cannot.
Thank you.
So, and sometimes what is, yes, Todd, yes.
Two-part question.
Okay.
Did bodhicitta exist before Buddha, or Buddha exist before bodhicitta?
That is like chicken and eggs. So when you find the answer to chicken and egg, then maybe I will give the answer here.
Second part question.
I think Melissa has her hand raised. Melissa?
Okay, here I have some listening here, so they have one question. So I will, then I will come there. Yeah, I will come there.
I assume that our heart would aspire to be bodhisattvas, and bodhisattvas would aspire to be. At what point in time, and who determines what determines when that occurs?
Okay, maybe I'm coming to actually those. I think maybe we are going to have more discussion later. Yes. So what was the questions? Who?
Melissa, you have
Melissa,
a question?
yeah.
Yes, Geshe, it's a short question. Before that, I want to say this is a really brilliant text, and your explanations have been very clear, and I want to thank you for that. The question I have is, I've heard the term pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and destroying. And I think I'm wrong, but I thought those were the 4 paramitas after the 6 that equal 10.
I guess maybe it can, whatever there, because there are different translations, so that is the problem with us is English term, everyone use different, and that is the problem because every translator use different terms. And sometimes they are talking the same thing, you might think, oh, they are talking something else because they are using different terms. Because there's no agree one terms. That is the problem with the translation. The good thing in Tibet, what happens is when the Buddhism came to Tibet, the king made the decisions. Everyone has to use the same term. All the translators, they can't just keep on using whatever term they want. They have to agree upon, coming, they must have meeting console, and then they agree upon who will use this term for this, and everyone use that, so there's no confusions. But in English, because there's no rule that, so every time, and even among small number of translations, they couldn't agree. Even just within the FMT, because there was one time a gathering of all the translation within the FMT to come to term where what word that they will use for this term so that it become more universal, and some of the translators, they think their term is better than others, this is more accurate, and the other one said, no, this is more accurate, they couldn't come to kind of agreement, so that is the problem we have, and due to that, they can be, but in Tibetan, it's a top, top normally is here it has translated as mean method, top, top, and top here it is translated as power, it can be power, forces, top, molom is a aspiration, prayer, and Geshe is exalted wisdom. Also here is translated wisdom. So in Tibetan, those are the words, Tap, Molom, Geshe, and so I don't know what other translators have translated, but definitely the translation, this translation that we saw, is more or less same than what I was using myself. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for teachings.
Thank you.
And we'll
So
help
we'll do the dedication then. Can you share the dedication prayers? Yeah. Due to the merits of this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhisattva that has not arisen, arise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Do you want to do that? I think maybe it's okay. Okay, then thank you very much, everyone. And good night. I know it's late there in New York, so then I think see you maybe in July.
Thank you so much.
See you in July, Geshe.
We'll confirm the date once.
Yes, we'll see you in July.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Okay. Bye. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Good night.
Night.
Okay.
To share now.